Hey all, Mike Manrod, aka Crude Solutions, here to talk about some random thoughts and the results from a little bit of recent testing on Apple kiosks. Special thanks to Ezra, Christian, Jordan, Daniel, Brandon, and Komal for their help on both the Apple and Escape to Host kiosk hacking aspects of this, as well as to our much longer list of contributors. Be sure to check out our framework control escape host on escape to host flaws and kiosk hacking, as well as our shared handle and project kiosk hacker. And flash ahead, coming soon, we'll have the kioskhacker.org website launching in advance of DEF CON. But, agenda, we're just going to talk through our thoughts overall about the security of Apple kiosks in the wild based upon limited sample size of Apple testing so far. Obviously, Windows kiosks are a lot more prevalent than Apple, intuitively at least. I don't have facts or data on that. But the biggest indicator was July 19th, 2024, when we all walked around airports and public places and we saw all the signs and kiosks displaying BSOD. Well, those definitely weren't Apple or Linux kiosks. So our views do not represent our employers or any of the nonprofit, community orgs we work with, and hack responsibly, right? Hack with only test kiosks with permission in a legit pen test or as part of a bug bounty, all that good stuff. So we're just going to, talk through some thoughts and then do some walk through some screenshots from some testing we did on an Apple kiosk that happened to be running Uniguest software. And again, this isn't to pick on Uniguest or Apple. It's just to kind of raise awareness of boundaries and issues with kiosks in general. And we'll try to keep this pretty short. So looking beyond Windows kiosks, those who followed, Shama Woods, myself, know that we beat up quite a bit on Win11 Attended Access. Go check out our Control Escape Host repo under Kiosk Playbook Attended Access. And, we found a lot of escapes, most of which still work as of this recording. And so we've had quite a bit of fun beating up on Win11, yet Win11 Attended Access out of the box has a lot of things that are locked down. And as Jordan has observed, if you combine that with some good InTune policies, like you can actually dial that in pretty good. Compare that with other random Windows kiosks like in the wild, such as the HP point of sale we looked at, and attended access is actually quite a bit better. Also, Christian and Ezra have done some cool stuff with Linux kiosks, and we've put out some stuff with Chrome OS, more to follow there. But again, Chrome OS looks pretty good. But we've been wondering, like, what about macOS kiosks? How are those? Like, if you're a pen tester and you see a macOS kiosk sitting on one side, and then you see a Win11 kiosk on the other side, like, which one should you go for? Well, it depends. More on Apple at DEF CON Demo Labs last year when we released Beaconator C2. Beaconator C2 is our C2 framework that has a lot of adversary emulation payloads to kind of test different scenarios, different languages, and kind of like to provide some adversary emulation on scenarios involving like defense evasion, EDR efficacy and detection rates. But also we want it to be a useful tool for pen testers and maybe a more versatile alternative to some of the other C2 frameworks. And Ezra's done a lot of great work on Beaconator, maturing it out, adding BOF support. So shout out to Ezra there. But one of the cool things we had fun with last year was trying some Apple hacking using Beaconator. And we found things like, hey, if you have Python installed, things like a Python or Go beacon could run cross-platform. That's probably not new news. Ezra wrote a really cool ZSH one-liner that was good foreshadowing of some of the terminal Apple-style click fix stuff we've seen in recent months. And obviously that worked and wasn't detected. But on the whole, we found Mac malware to be harder from our own personal testing than Windows, right? Like Windows, you just write something, you compile it, and it runs. And if it happens to be AutoIt, AutoHotkey, or Lua, it runs and does not get detected by default if it's new and novel, at least by most EDRs most of the time. That's what we've kind of found over the past few years. So you'd think Apple kiosks would be more secure than Windows out of the box if you compare like other malware, maldev attack scenarios, right? I mean, that's what we thought. Like I would have thought if you'd have asked me at DEF CON last year, like, hey, if you're kiosk hacking, you see an Apple kiosk and a Windows kiosk, you know, should you bother with the Apple one or should you just beeline it straight for the Windows one? You'd think like, well, the Apple one, like that's gonna be like that's gotta be harder to attack, right? Well, not quite. So we have a few observations we'll walk through before we begin to get into the screenshots. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm losing my voice as I record this video. My kids would be teasing me that I talk too much, and they would be right. So, unlike Windows 11 Attended Access or Chrome OS like Enterprise Kiosk, Mac OS does not seem to provide a native out-of-the-box kiosk mode. Now, if I'm wrong on that, educate me in the comments and I'll learn and put out another video correcting myself. But there's not like a button you push like attended access where you follow 6 easy steps and you're in a single app kiosk mode for Mac OS. So if somebody wants something like a shiny, fancy iMac kiosk in their hotel lobby or their corporate lobby, or hey, find the office you're looking for in this office building, Microsoft and Chrome give you push button options that are pretty secure despite the flaws we've pointed out of the box. Um, but Apple, like even if you just start asking like your favorite AI, yeah, it gives you options like full screening a browser, not very secure. Um, and then it points you like by default, like if you just Google it, it points you to InTune and JAMF. So did some work with Jordan and looked InTune and JAMF. All right. So there's got to be at least there a push button like, oh, make this iMac a kiosk. No. You go there and you hit the make this iMac a kiosk type button. There is no button. What you have, and sorry, my slides are going crazy here. What you have is a whole bunch of individual settings that each administrator has to do by default. So again, if you see an iMac and it's been locked down via Intune or Jamf by a very skilled sysadmin, you might be in for a fight. Like they might have locked out everything, or at least everything I know how to do. Like it might be pretty darn secure, or you might at least have a really fun challenge on your hand as a pen tester or researcher, right? But the problem is every sysadmin will be different. Like even in Jamf or Intune, in theory, this is just hypothetical. I haven't tested this, but one person may forget to lock down one feature that another admin may forget to lock down another feature. So you got some variability there. Observation two, it seems like a common path that people follow is just a custom third-party kiosk solution. And one of the vendors, like at least according to some initial Google foo, touted like being in 17,000 hotel chains or having like over 1 million kiosks, managed around the world, right? So for the third party space, these are big numbers. And some of them specialize in hotels, some of them specialize in signage, some of them specialize in point of sale, but third party seems to be really widely prevalent if it's not a Chrome OS sign or kiosk or a Win11 attended access kiosk. It's often third party. So, observation three, so far on average across having tested, multiple now, Envisionware, HP, like in general, it seems like the average of the third party solutions is way below what Windows and Google have done out of the box, right? Like if you take if you just take a Windows or Chrome OS kiosk mode and just follow the basic steps, you hit a pretty high bar where, at least compared with some of these third-party solutions that, quite frankly, maybe just don't have the resources of Google or Microsoft. So, and another observation, more of a concession, is Mac OS kiosks are just way less common, right? Like it's more like the premium, ritzy, fancy use cases where people are like, okay, this is a luxury place, so the kiosk is going to be an iMac, not, just your normal thing. So, you know, conclusion, and don't stop the video. This isn't the real conclusion. If you're running a pen test or you're working on a bug bounty and you see a Mac OS kiosk, test it. And again, remember only ethically with good intent and permission, hack responsibly, so on and so forth. So hopefully you didn't close out the video there at the point because I said the word conclusion, not really the conclusion. Now we get to the meat and potatoes of looking at our use case involving Apple Mac OS kiosks running on iMac using the Uniguest kiosk software. So apologies in advance, the photos suck. In kiosk hacking, there's basically two kinds. You can either run it in a VM, allowing for like nice videos and photos. That's great if you have the ability to do that. But then there's the kind of kiosk testing where you can't do that. This is the latter. So it's cool. You have a secure public use kiosk with this iMac, and you click continue. It's supposed to be safe for public untrusted users to use, keeping them operating just in the context of the desired applications. Now, escape was trivial but limited. You basically launch the apps you're supposed to, and then you can get a top context menu. You can get to Finder really easily just by clicking. It's not difficult to escape, even when compared with like Envisionware or HP point of sale kiosks. Again, this is not representative at all of Uniguest overall. We're just talking about Uniguest on iMac, Mac OS here. But and there's a lot of trust boundaries enforced. Like you click to launch terminal, application blocked. You try some other live off the land things, you get application blocked. You go to settings, again, pretty good there. Most of the options were grayed out. But if you go to applications, one of the items there is Automator. And remember, live off the land is not just limited to terminal on Mac, and live off the land is not just for Windows. Obviously, live off the land works on Apple too, and Automator has become one of my favorite attack surfaces there in a lot of contexts. So if we look at Automator, and again, this was not a situation where I had the ability to do like videos and cool stuff that might be coming later. But the thing about a kiosk is until you've escaped, you can't really like run things in it always. And Apple is notoriously difficult to virtualize. So it's just way much easier to find somebody willing to collaborate with the testing. So if you launch Automator, you have all these options. Of course, my favorite would be send birthday greetings from the kiosk. I do know a couple of people with birthdays coming up, wink, wink. But no, in this case, run shell script looked interesting. So, like, would a run-open a calculator work? And sure enough, it does. It launches calculator. So, while the scope of the permission of testing I had here was limited, I wasn't going to introduce like a Beaconator one-liner payload or anything obnoxious like that. Pretty much, it's probably pretty safe to say that whatever ZSH shells you want to run shell script, you want to run can run, and that drop down here provides other things like Python and so on and so forth. And again, you just run it via the run button. Again, a compliment on this scenario is you could not create your Automator script and then run it. Like if you if you like save an Automator script to the desktop and then run it, it blocks that application. But in the developer context within Automator, you can do all of these things on these menus, or at least the things I tried, and they work in kiosk mode. So here is also like a hello world script via Python, which the syntax of Python within Automator is a little quirky compared to regular, you know, Python syntax, but you can get Python to run there, and you can see our little hello world photo there from that test. So basically, classic, hey, some things are locked off out, but not all live off the land. And, basically we can escape kiosk and get code or command execution. So this also could be a crossover to our upcoming project Smuggle King, a crossover to possibly other, live off the land, Beacon Air C2, other types of scenarios. So what should we do? Get rid of all the Mac kiosks? No, just kidding. One thing, it would be an easy fix for vendors such as Uniguest, and I'm imagining this is probably across many vendors, to just lock down Automator, right? And to reanalyze the live off the land escape and attack surface. And just in general, we need to test, report issues, and uplift kiosk security more in general. I mean, remember, a rising tide carries, all kiosks, right? So why does this really matter? Who cares about being able to run some Python script or some ZSH scripting on a random kiosk? Well, maybe nobody. Sometimes these devices are utterly unimportant, and proper network segmentation, domain isolation, these types of things exist. But again, to shout out some of the things Tech Spence has pointed out on the random host misconfigurations, and granted, he talks a lot about Windows because that's usually where this is, but a lot of these things apply on Mac. Like, are there default files on every Apple device that you configure that are not that important on a user workstation, or maybe they are on a MacBook, but you're configuring your kiosk the same way, and maybe you have secrets or config files or setup details or some sort of data somebody could get to on your kiosk that could provide a pathway to other hosts. Is it domain joined? Yep, Mac OS devices are not always domain joined, but they, in theory, can be. So could there be domain attack surface? There could be. What network is it on? Is it adjacent or routable? Uh, Immature shops are almost always going to have, unless it's just secure by accident, network attack surface. But even mature shops, frequently there's the issue of like all the right segmentation is in place, but a firewall rule got messed up in a change, and now all of a sudden, due to firewall rule order or something like that, you can get to something you can't until somebody tests it. So um, and then the other is I have not personally researched much on, Mimikat style or credential or keychain abuse style attacks on Apple, but I've heard other people talk about the topic. So is there a password used on the Apple kiosk that could be used or abused elsewhere? Again, Apple kiosks maybe would not be quite as juicy a target in some ways from like a tooling perspective as like, hey, you escape to host, you get full compromise of a Win11 kiosk joined to a domain. Yeah, there's some other, obviously some of those things, the tooling and tradecraft is more mature on attacking the domain through that Windows host than that Mac kiosk. Still, this might matter. And again, through our kiosk hacker profile and identity, what we really want to do is raise awareness of kiosks in general and build the body of knowledge that allow everybody to test responsibly, share information, and just like I said on the past slide, a rising tide raises all kiosks. Like, let's work together to test, to share, and to elevate. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for staying for this video. And once again, hack responsibly, use this knowledge ethically, and let's hopefully level up our kiosk hacking game and makes kiosks more secure the world over. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.